Angela Merkel has made it clear that she's now, she felt extremely humiliated during Copenhagen, and she's backtracking, and she was one of the more forceful members of the EU. And if she's backtracking and others are, and China and India are playing a very different card, the kind of, who are you to keep telling us what to do? This isn't the colonial era, you know, that kind of card. I mean,
well, at the end of the day,
the UN isn't going to be reformed overnight, and we do need to come to something.
We have
very
198 countries. We have two big superpowers, both of whom are big players in this whole issue. In China, things, from my understanding, seem to be moving more quickly at provincial level rather than at state level. We have to encourage that. In America, who knows what's going to happen this year with the political agenda of President Obama. The climate change bill has come off the agenda in order to allow an immigration bill to go through. Let's see what happens. He's very aware of the issue. I think he's seized of the question. He wants to do something, but he doesn't have a built-in necessary majority for everything. He has to win the political support for that. And who knows what's going to happen in the British election, the German elections when they come, and so on. So we have to do with the politicians as they are. It's about leadership, and it's about keeping the pressure on, and it's about using that very effective voice from the Maldives and their cabinet meeting underwater and others to say, look guys, it's not enough. So for us, and I can't be prescriptive, I can be suggestive, reform the UN so you get a mechanism that sits permanently to grasp these things, not occasionally. Set up a body that is a UN agency, because the third and developing world don't trust the IMF and the World Bank for delivery of some of the finance. They want that to be done.
Them?
I can't blame them, and I understand the issues, so I can't. So we should have a different delivery mechanism. I think the Commonwealth, not for nostalgic reasons, actually could play a much more useful part, because it links very large countries like India, the largest polluter per head of the world, Australia, with very small island states, and the oldest industrial polluter of them all, namely the UK. It's a role for the Commonwealth. So that's an organisation of the very big and the very small. But we need to get opportunities for the groups of countries to get their thoughts together and come to an agreement. So, for example, this is a rather long answer, I apologise, but if you had a global Security Council, then you could have representatives of the island states. They could come to a common view. You could have the African states coming to a common view. You can have the Latin American states. So you have a representative of each group sitting around the table, as well as the people who, by virtue of their contribution, need to be there, the US and the Chinas and so on. So it's not impossible to see the process. And then you have to try to remind people that if you don't move at the pace of people well beyond the slowest mover, then there could be desperate and very costly consequences.
And there already are.
And there are. And it's a question of the political will. Now, all we can do is encourage people. But I am encouraged by one thing. Copenhagen was frustrating. I, like you, didn't fly there. I went by train. On the way back and on the way there, I met lots of people also going by train from all over the world and there. What I was persuaded of is that in every single country of the world, there are now activists, community groups, voluntary sector organisations, civil society, local politicians, elected politicians who understand the issue. So at last, the world is seized of the issue. It's about enabling the voices to be heard and the influences to take place.
Absolutely. But the fact remains that this is a tiny minority, and the Lib Dems, although they are surging now in this country, it's still, quite possible that you would be perhaps invited to be part of a coalition government. Would you, because of the urgency to the whole world of this issue, even if you had other reservations, would you support a coalition in order to get this very passionate voice that you have across in a more
we need
way?
I mean, let me be clear, we haven't had any informal private talks with other parties yet. The British people will decide the numbers of people elected, and we will work with that. That's their rightful duty. The answer is we want it to be on the agenda, and we are determined to try to put it on the agenda, not just at home. The really good news for me is that in my time in active politics, now quite a long time, since 1971, I've seen liberals and liberal democracy grow in many countries of the world. For example, in Germany, we're in government at the moment with an influential voice. So it's not just in this country where we can play influential roles. In Scandinavia, in Denmark, in African countries now, in Asian countries, in Latin American countries, sort of sister parties of ours. For me, the method is to bring together the pressure from all of our liberal grouping around the world, not just in the EU or in the UK. So the answer to your question is yes, we will seek to negotiate, push, pressure, lever a more ambitious programme in the UK. We'll use our group in the European Parliament, led by an environmental campaigner of many years, Fiona Hall, to do the same in the European Union. And we have to hope and pray that that will produce, with other efforts, the new urgency. I get really worried that government, having failed at Copenhagen, just turns the calendar and it sees a year ending in December and someone's put a ring around a date which says Cancun. And they think, oh, that's the meeting for this year, and then you could turn over and there'd be another meeting for next year.
Well, they're already saying that they're not going to come to anything in
No.
Cancun. It's going to be at least South Africa,
No.
so it could run
I
around.
mean, the Kyoto Agreement ran until the end of next year, so we have technically until next year, but we really can't be fiddling around assuming it'll be all fine. It wasn't all fine in Copenhagen, and if we're not careful, it won't be all fine in Cancun either. So we would take initiatives, whatever our influence or position, to try to get permanent structures in place now. And Britain, with our new person as the senior foreign affairs person in the European Union, has a key role to play. And if we were in government or influencing government, the Baroness Ashton would be required, she would be told as a UK representative, that she would be expected to press that much harder than before.
And final question, if you Liberals did either come into power directly or in a coalition or holding the balance, would you press very hard for DEC to expand, as I've heard, and would you be part of that and really push for that?
What we like to do, and we're clear about this, and it ties in with trying to reduce the cost of government as a structure, we want to put the Department of Energy and Climate Change back with the environmental departments. So that's, in British terms, Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and with transport, because it's such a big player in shipping and air travel particularly, and rail, and the planning parts that come from another department. So we'd have a big department, because at the moment the totemic benefit of the Department of Energy and Climate Change is visually good, but actually it's not so influential. It needs to be a major player represented around the cabinet table, and if I was given the opportunity of playing any role in that after the election, I would jump at it. And I hope my party would be clear coming to these discussions that as the party that's been the Green Party for 40 years, that we would expect to be in that sort of position, because we are about the environmental international agenda as much as about anything in our DNA, and we'd want to deliver that. It's up to the great British people over the next few days to see if they give us the chance. If any of them are watching this programme now and have votes in the UK, either because they're British citizens or Commonwealth citizens, all of whom have the right to vote, I say to them, please be brave, vote for a Green Party able to be in government and give us the chance to be different and much more radical than the two parties that have gone before.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you for what you do.
I really hope that something will change in some way in order that climate change really is tackled, because hundreds of millions of people will be desperate.
I understand the urgency, and I rely on people like you to keep on pressing the case, and I hope we'll be as responsive as you'd wish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.